And so that might have thrown everybody off a little bit. You guys all set? Thank you. Nikki, can you give us a roll call, please?
I sure can. Thank you, Chair Bohn. We'll start with you, Chair Bohn.
I am here.
Supervisor Bushnell.
Good morning.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Here.
Supervisor Wilson.
Present.
Supervisor Madrone.
Present.
Thank you.
And could we stand for our salute to the flag? And I'll have Mr. Brunell lead us in it. Gary? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Hayes.
Good morning, Chair Bohn. There are no modifications to the agenda today.
Really? We are going to have just so you know, we are going to have a hard break at 11:30 today. 11:30 to 12. So if we don't get your item, we will have a hard break at 11:30. And now we will move to the consent calendar. Anybody have anything to say before we take it to public comment, or would you like to read the proclamations, Ms. Arroyo?
Chair Bohn, I'd love to read the proclamations if that's
All right.
possible.
Well, we'll start off then with the Sons of Italy. Sons and daughters. You standing next to Joe doesn't work, but. Whereas Eureka Lodge 1274 of the Sons and Daughters of Italy in America was founded on March 16, 1924, and whereas on said date, 92 members were initiated along with the installation of the lodge's first president, Victor Sampati, a prominent local attorney. And whereas the Eureka Lodge is the fourth oldest lodge in California, whereas in 1963, the State Grand Lodge held its convention Eureka at the Eureka Municipal Auditorium. Whereas the initial purpose in organizing the Sons and Daughters of Italy in America was to immediately help assimilate Italian immigrants to understand their rights, accept their responsibilities, and become productive members of American society. And whereas the Eureka Lodge today promotes the general welfare of the residents of Humboldt County through fundraising and charitable activities, whereas annually the Eureka Lodge organizes an outdoor Italian festival, accordion recital, and bocce tournament at the Redwood Ball Fields in Cutton, whereas the Sons and Daughters of Italy, Eureka Lodge 1274, will celebrate their 100th anniversary at the Eureka Warfinger Building on March 23rd, beginning at 5 p.m. Now therefore be resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims March 16, 2024 as Eureka Lodge 1274 Centennial Day and congratulates the Eureka Order of the Sons and Daughters of Italy on its 100th anniversary. I'll come bring it to you, Joe. Thanks. Did you want to say anything, Joe, or are you good with the? All right, Josie? You might, there you go.
Hi, my name is Josephine Silva. That name is Portuguese. I am half Portuguese, half Italian. My grandparents came to the United States in the year 1900 from Sicily. I belong to the Sons of Italy and the Italian Catholic Federation. I'm chaplain of the Sons and Daughters of Italy. We have 2 chicken and polenta dinners a year. We earn money from that to give scholarships. We have the Italian Festival, which we have a wonderful bocce tournament. We built the bocce courts at the Redwood Ball Fields, and we have a wonderful time with bocce tournaments. Everyone is invited to the Italian festivals. We do the stand down where we feed the veterans with a spaghetti dinner. That's one of our charitable things. We also feed the lady veterans at a lady sit-down luncheon, usually the first week in November. And we do so many wonderful things. We do scholarships for the high school graduates. And we have a lot of camaraderie, a lot of potluck dinners where, you know, Italian people love to cook, love to eat, and a lot of food. We love to cook. Why don't you come down one of these days when we have our meetings and you'll see what I'm talking about. Abundanza, a lot of food. And I am an excellent cook. I've won prizes with my spaghetti sauce and my tiramisu, so don't be bashful. And my biscotti has won prizes, so don't be bashful. We're happy to share our food with everyone. And next month, we're having our chicken and polenta dinner. So look forward to going to our chicken and polenta dinner. It is delicious. It's phenomenal. So thank you very much. We appreciate the proclamation being recognized by the city of Eureka, and we love you. I love Eureka. Thank you very much.
Thanks. Thanks, Josie. And I think we have a 24-year relationship with the bocce ball courts out at Redwood Fields, and it's been nothing better on a Sunday afternoon than having 10 accordions in the parking lot and bocce in the background and bocce dogs on the grill. So thank you. So I'm going to turn back to our CEO as she has a slight modification that we didn't know was going to be modified.
Yeah, sorry, Chair Madrone, or excuse me, Chair Bohn. Item J2 from planning, the departmental item to discuss the private lands intentional community shelter program, that is being pulled off of the agenda today.
Good. Thank you. All right. With that, we will go to the Fortuna Chambers. Supervisor Bushnell?
Sorry, Chair.
Whoa, yes.
Point of order, can we just get a approval of the calendar to include that modification?
Can we do a blanket? Can we do a blanket?
Motion
Aye.
to approve the amended agenda?
Are you reading off of the consent calendar, though?
No, we're just pulling out one
So
item.
we're done with the consent.
No, this
No.
is a removal of an item off the regular
This is
agenda.
a J2's coming off.
So it's an agenda modification approval.
I'm trying, do we have to go through a roll call or can I do a blanket? Aye. You can do a blanket aye. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, now we will go to Fortuna Chamber of Commerce Awards. Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. So last week, was it last week, I believe, the Fortuna Chamber had their annual dinner, and they recognized a number of businesses and I'm not going to read them all, but a number of businesses and Citizen of the Year, who was Becky Giacomini. I want to congratulate them for a very successful dinner. It was very well done, very well attended. And if you'd like to see who the recipients are, please go to the agenda and click on the item and scroll down. There are quite a few of them, and I just want to say congratulations to those business owners and the Citizen of the Year for Fortuna Chamber.
And then we have the National Surveyors Week, and that is also from Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you. Is someone here? I know Mr. Bronco. Anybody else for National Surveyors Week? Oh, there he is. And so actually, National Surveyors Week is next week, but we don't have a meeting, so I'm going to read the proclamation today, and we're going to recognize it today. Whereas land surveying has been a rich part of our history and an important piece in the development of Humboldt County and the United States, and whereas some of the most famous land surveyors, including George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Daniel Boone, Abraham Lincoln, Benjamin Banker, a free ex-slave who became part of the crew that surveyed the original borders of Washington, D.C. And whereas land surveyors use specialized equipment to measure and mark property boundaries, calculating the dimensions, elevations, shapes, and contours of sites for public government and private land development. And whereas land surveyors must conduct surveys and perform mathematical calculations with a high level of accuracy, a land surveyor's role involves examining historical property records and maps to determine legal boundaries of a specific piece of land. And whereas the Humboldt chapter of the California Land Surveyors Association has been instrumental in identifying and preserving historical land boundaries through monument preservation surveys and obtaining private collections of historic maps and survey records. And whereas the Humboldt County Surveyor's Office strives to provide superior customer service to county departments, the land development community, and the general public. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Supervisors proclaims the week of March 17th through March 23rd as National Surveyors Week in the County of Humboldt. So this one is specifically endears my heart. My husband is a land surveyor, and my father-in-law was a land surveyor before he passed, and started surveying lands in Humboldt, Trinity, and Mendocino in about the 50s. I went out with my husband and held the little reflector, know nothing about surveying except for he points and says, go there. It's a lot of work. It's really hard. The calculations that the surveyors go through, I can't even begin to figure it out. But I'm very honored to know a little bit about the profession and to help my husband at times, but I'm going to let Bob and speak.
Hi. Thank you for honoring surveyors. This year, I am privileged to have been voted one of the co-presidents of the Humboldt chapter CLSA. The other co-president is Jason Long with Caltrans. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to be here today. And then we have Michael Pulley, who is a rising star in the CLSA organization at the state level. And I don't know what else I could add to what Supervisor Bushnell has already said, but I can allude to some of the work that our local surveying crew is doing. Today, as a matter of fact, they're out on Pool Road down by the Ferndale area surveying a storm damage site, and works to getting that road repaired and functioning.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you again for recognizing us during the Surveyors Week a little early. As Bob said, I'm going to be treasurer of the State California Land Surveyors Association and then working my way through the chairs, so I will be president in 2026. And I just really appreciate you guys recognizing the work we do on behalf of the county and private landowners to keep both the economy moving, people's property lines secure and safe, and everything in order. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and seeing no public comment.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And then back to Supervisor Bushnell for the Eel River Valley Seroptimist winners. I'm giving it to you, though. Go ahead. Same thing. The Eel River Seroptimist gave out their Young Youth Women Awards last week on the and it was well attended. I did not, minus me. But if you go to the agenda, you'll be able to see the award winners. And I don't think, is anybody here from Seroptimist? I do not see anybody. So anyway, we'll move on. And from there, we will go to, I believe, Supervisor Arroyo. Is this next one yours?
It is. And would you like to take public comment after each item or at the end of the consent calendar?
We can take this item when you're done. I just asked for, there's been no yes.
Okay, all right. So I have a proclamation recognizing Two-Spirit Day of Appreciation and Celebration. So those who'd like to receive it, please feel welcome to come up to the podium. And then it sounds like we'll do comment on this item right afterwards. Hi, Michelle. Good to see you. Hi, Ted. Hello, friends. Whereas originating from indigenous communities of Turtle Island, the concept of Two-Spirit denotes a unique cultural identity that includes various sexual and gender expressions intersecting with indigenous LGBTQ+ identities and people who hold diverse, culturally significant roles in their respective communities. And whereas the term Two-Spirit was first articulated at the 3rd Annual Intertribal Native American First Nations Gay and Lesbian Conference in Winnipeg in 1990, as an umbrella term and organizing tool to center the diversity of gender identities and sexual expressions within indigenous communities that have rich histories predating European colonization. And whereas Two-Spirit Day of Appreciation and Celebration is already recognized in communities across Canada, including the City of Vancouver, the Province of British Columbia, and the City of Saskatoon, and by many Indigenous, Two-Spirit, and non-Indigenous community-based organizations across Canada, occurring annually on the spring equinox, symbolizing harmonious balance between length of day and night and moving from a time of dormancy to a season of newness, growth, and light. And whereas because of community activism, determined advocacy, resilience, and talent, Two-Spirit people continue to reclaim and tear down systemic barriers set up to exclude them and serve as community, cultural, and educational leaders. And whereas there are 9 federally recognized tribal nations, along with a large community of Indigenous people from around the nation and around the world within Humboldt County, including those who recognize Two-Spirit people within their cultures and languages, such as the Wiyot Terms tribe in Sulatluk of Gumel, which means both together. And whereas the County of Humboldt celebrates the beauty and resilience of Two-Spirit people today and throughout history, recognizing that Two-Spirit people have a rich tradition of contributing in myriad ways to the betterment of our society, often working at the forefront of social justice activism and human rights. And whereas in Humboldt County, we believe in and reaffirm the inherent value of each resident of our county, including our Two-Spirit communities, individuals, and families without exception. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the County of Humboldt hereby declares Tuesday, March 19th, 2024, as Two-Spirit Day of Appreciation and Celebration, and encourages all residents to learn about Two-Spirit traditions and communities today, summon the courage to stand up and speak out to interrupt racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia when it occurs, and listen with patience and empathy to create an environment for learning and understanding each other regardless of what we look like, where we come from, or who we love. Hi, do you want to receive it? All of us? Okay. Can I ask one? Yes. Excuse me. Turn this way. Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. Glad you're here.
So I'd like to take a minute to say thank you to the County Board of Supervisors. This is a historic event proclaiming March 19th, the celebration of our Two-Spirit relatives in our community. The Wiyot tribe believes that everyone in our community, we need everybody in our community to engage in cultural activities to rediscover We culture, investigate, participate, support, and encourage each other to be welcomed into our community with an open mind and open heart. We recognize that each of us has a role to play in advancing the tribe's mission, culture, and language revitalization. The Wiyot tribe is committed to creating space for diversity and engagement and intends to create or to increase diverse representation and empower courageous engagement. For some of us, it means summoning the courage to stand up and speak out to interrupt racism, sexism, homophobia, and transphobia when it occurs. For others, it means listening with patience and empathy to create an environment for learning and understanding each other's, regardless of what we look like, where we come from, or who we love. Collectively, as Wiyot people, we call ourselves Gawul, which means people, and that term embodies all of us. Chwash.
Heyang de hatlet dang no huang CJ Holiet Ninasan me atinish twit Holiet Lewis Wahontating Holiet. Hello, my name is CJ Lewis. My nickname is Earthquake. I am from the Hoopa Valley tribe and a high school intern for Queer Humboldt through Hoopa Valley High School. I'm absolutely filled with gratitude and joy that Humboldt County has declared the spring equinox as Two-Spirit Awareness and Celebration Day. With the most positivity, I applaud Humboldt County for being the first place in the country to do this and hope other places follow. The future is bright. I myself identify as Two-Spirit, which is a significant and powerful part of me as a person. It's my truth and its whole identity. This decision means so much to me, and I know it means a lot for many others within our community. I'm overjoyed with excitement to celebrate this day, as well as to see how others celebrate it for many years to come. Set dia, which means thank you.
I'm not sure if there's more comment on this item, but now would be the time if anyone else would like to speak on it.
Public comment on this item. Seeing none? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks, Ted.
Chair Bohn?
Yes.
I apologize for the
Do you have a hand up?
interruption. We have a hand up. I'm not sure if it's for that item. I can check. I just wanted to let you know.
Let's take a shot, see.
Okay. Caller 0151, please press star 6 to unmute your phone, and you'll be given 3 minutes. It might just be on general because they are not unmuting.
All right. All right.
The chair.
Oh, they unmuted. Are you calling in for the Two-Spirit agenda item we just spoke about? 015.
No,
Okay. We're just taking public comment on that item. Sorry, we're just taking public comment on that item. We'll call for general comments on the consent calendar in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Supervisor Wilson?
I just want to thank Supervisor Arroyo for bringing this item forward. I didn't realize we were the first. Awesome. We'll take it. I really, really appreciate that, and I appreciate the folks coming in here today. It's not easy to be the first, but it's in the right direction, so I really thank you so much.
Supervisor Royal.
Thank you. So the state of California is exploring recognition of Two-Spirit Day, and they haven't gotten there yet. So yes, we are the first, and I understand that the discussions with the state about this recognition will now include Humboldt County as a community in the state of California that has chosen to acknowledge us. So excited that we could provide this support to our community members. Many of you may be aware, but there was a vigil recently amongst folks who wanted to provide support to one another in the wake of the death of Next Benedict. which didn't occur here, but has had an important, I would say, a significant impact on people's lives and sense of safety. And so this comes at a time when I think the community would really especially appreciates the support and the demonstration of love and community.
Thank you very much. And then we'll move on to proclaim March as Women's History Month. And again, we turn to Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you. So we have a proclamation for Women's History Month, and I'll read that. Is there anybody here besides all the women in the audience? Whereas women of every culture and ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of Humboldt County in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas local women have furthered the cause of freedom through a variety of means and seek a fair and just society for all, while continuing to work for peace around the world. And whereas the history of the Humboldt County women is an expansive story of outstanding individuals who sacrificed much and worked hard in pursuit of a better world, where peace, dignity, and opportunity can reign, such as the work of Sarah Johnson, the first woman lighthouse keeper in California, right here on the Samoa Peninsula, and where women of Humboldt County continue to particularly important in the establishment of charitable and cultural instructions, and whereas women have shaped our community by shouldering the care and nurturing of families while furthering equality and administrating justice in every corner of our community through volunteering in schoolrooms, boardrooms, courtrooms, environmental organizations, and more. Whereas despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been repeatedly overlooked and often undervalued in the literature, teaching, and study of American history. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Humboldt County Board of Supervisors hereby declares that March 2024 is designated as Women's History Month in Humboldt County, and encourages all residents to learn more about these important contributions and to celebrate the legacies of all women everywhere.
Thank you. Is there anybody to speak on that? Seeing no one, we will now go to Supervisor Arroyo on certificates of recognition for the Humboldt Bay Seroptimist winners.
Well, continuing with, excuse me, Women's History Month, Seroptimists recognize some incredible women in our community. The Seroptimists International of Humboldt Bay chapter recognized Rachel Simon, Jessica Rebholz, Kelly McGlathry, Cecily Lara, Sydney Taylor, Samantha Sweet, Andrea DeLangus, and Rowan Dick as their honorees this year. And, great kudos to all of those folks who contribute to the community so much.
Great. Thank you. And now we'll bring the balance of the consent calendar back to the board. Is there any public comment on it? Seeing none,
Chair Bohn, I do have a caller in Zoom.
please.
Okay, caller 0151, now is your chance to speak on the consent calendar. Star 6 to unmute yourself, I'm sorry, and you'll have 3 minutes. (0151) star 6 to unmute, please. Oh, she's not unmuting.
All right. Seeing no response, I'll bring it back to the board. Supervisor Wilson?
I was going to move consent.
I'll second, and then I have a comment.
It's been moved and seconded. Your comment?
I just want to recognize that we have a notice of an at-large vacancy on the Humboldt County Headwaters Fund Board, and as always, we ask our community to get involved and apply for these commissions and boards, and you can do that through Tracy D'Amico at the clerk's office. We are always looking for people that want to be involved.
Great. Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Madrone.
Yeah, there's an item on the on the consent agenda about the North Coast Resource Partnership accepting, the county accepting a grant. And I just want to thank the staff at our Natural Resources Division within Public Works for all their hard work to manage this incredible work, which brings 7 counties together all over Northern California, working on watershed projects, water supply projects, and all kinds of wonderful things. So I just want to give a shout out to Hank Siemens and the staff, Sibel Emmett, Julia Cavalli, and all the others that work so hard to help that happen for us. So thank you.
I appreciate that, and the fruition of watching this grow. The vision of Jimmy Smith lives on. It's nice. Okay, with that, it's been moved and seconded.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
And Chair Bohn.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
And now, maybe 151, we'll have public comment on non-agenda items. Public comment on non-agenda items.
Hello.
Hi.
My name is Heather Pierce, and I'm here to just mention the agenda item that was taken off for this month, or this week, the ordinance on the communities. So I just want to let you know that I live at one of the communities, at the community we're talking about, Yeehaw. And I first came there when my son was a baby 27 years ago. And so this community has been in existence for well over 30 years. I've been semi-involved from the beginning. I moved away, and now I moved back because it's one of my favorite places. And so I would just say that historically, there has not been any issues as far as safety. 27 years, no one's, and so I understand that there are some major problems with the ordinance as set forth, particularly regarding liability, and so I'm grateful that we have taken it off the agenda for now, because we do plan on working on wording that might better suit the supervisors, particularly with the liability, things like that. I think that's all. So I hope that when it does come up, that we can take into account the historic success that it has been so far. And also, as far as liability, I do want to mention that currently, I believe the county, the state, all of us are liable for all the homeless that are on the street right now. So I cannot imagine that anybody would think that it is safer to sleep under a bridge than in the house that I live in. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heather's mom, Diana. I also live at Yeehaw, and I love it there very much. And I just want to tell you all how much I would love to be able to just live out the life of my dreams without having this hanging over my head all the time. And I think if there's a will, that there's a way, and that we could, 35 years without really any problems, that we could probably be grandfathered in somehow. So hoping for that. Also, I want to say that since I became aware of the homeless problem, it always seemed to me that some place could take a homeless camp where they choose to be, maybe some place that's sheltered from the rain or something, and just put enough people out in some porta potties, and just put enough people out and social workers and everything that it could work. Because I know one of the problems of these places is they always degenerate into, shooting galleries and whatever. So to just prevent that and let everyone live a life that's decent, safe, and that it seems to me like the main problems with homelessness are the human waste and the safety of the people there. So if they could be kept safe and had a place to, go, it seems like a county could really alleviate a lot of the problems, and things could be more peaceful and settled that way.
Thank you. See, okay.
Hi, my name's Phoenix Howling. I would also like to speak briefly on the emergency housing community ordinance. It does seem to me to be the most cost-effective solution to addressing the homelessness problem. Considering the county is already liable for people on the street. It doesn't really make sense to me that they would make it more difficult to house individuals. This is a common sense, structures that are already in place, vehicles that can be used for residences. And as the previous speaker, Diana, said, there hasn't really been any major issues. Looking at the reasons why you would, reject the proposal involves, things like substandard housing, and as well as, basically the wording is that it's not in the public interest, which to me is really silly because homelessness, as we all know, is a very real problem, and the public is affected by it in a real manner. And what YEHA is it's a place for people to go and have a foundation and have a place to to really have that foundation and a chance to get back on their feet. And there are definitely certain environmental things to be considered, and we could definitely come up with some sort of framework to make that happen. But to pretend like 30 people living in the forest, is going to be nearly as environmentally degrading as, say, our neighbors, Mercer Fraser and their quarry, who actively spew asbestos dust into the air and destroy the water table. To be complicit in that, but not to allow us to live our lives, to me is, I don't know what to call it, negligence. Anyway, I yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Charles Garth. We've talked about some good stuff this morning already, and I want to talk about some of the other stuff. I'm having issues with environmental health, the department. 30 years ago, I built to their specifications a large cement double tank composting toilet. It has a nice roof on it, and my stuff's dry. It's dry when it floods. I don't worry about it because it's not flooding. I know a lot of people in some fine castles they got to worry about if their septic tanks are overflowing. I wouldn't want to be in the middle of winter working at the sewage treatment plant. They put those things at the bottom of the hill. It's a pretty floodable place. But at any rate, I've been trying to get a permit for a long time, and these guys need prodding. They're just not into it. They're just not. I've hired two engineering firms over the years, and only to be frustrated. Environmental health has come out, and they like my dispersal field. They're friendly. I like them personally, but they just don't want to do anything. And if it comes to pass that you want to deal with them sometime, please prod them to do something. They have it on the books. They're supposed to allow these things. They've allowed one ever. Like most people check it out and want to do it, but they give up. And they give up for good reasons. It's not worth going through all that trouble. That's all I got to say. So if this comes up and you got to talk to them, please prod them to do their job. Thank you.
Yes. Seeing no one else,
Chair Bohn, I have two callers in Zoom.
please.
0151, *6 to unmute, and you'll have 3 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go to the next caller, and we'll continue to try and get your phone to unmute. 2223, please press *6 to unmute. You'll have, geez, I can't talk today. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Craig Johnson calling in this morning. And I'm calling in around the topic of housing and keeping people in their housing. I know the board has been working diligently to help folks retain insurance, homeowners insurance, fire insurance. I'm getting more community reaching out to me to use my voice to advocate for them. And this is an elderly couple in the Arcata coastal zone who was just notified they're going to be losing their insurance because of fire danger. in the coastal zone. This is Mercury Insurance. They're pulling out of California. So now this family needs to figure out what they're going to do next. So the issue isn't just in the rural parts of the county. The issue is coming into our urban areas, and even our coastal zones, our tsunami zones are being affected by fire insurance. So I really appreciate, I know Supervisor Bushnell did a meeting recently, and we need to keep working hard on this and keep this at the forefront with our state lobbyists and maybe even our federal lobbyists, because the couple that came to me, they're an elderly couple. They're multiple generations of being here in Humboldt. They're ex-mill workers. Their family had logging trucks way, way back in the day. And now they're wondering what they're going to do. So this is affecting everyone. So again, thank you for letting me share. And please, let's keep the fire lit of keeping attention on this subject, and we need to bring these homeowners insurance rates down and keep insurance available to all residents. Thank you so much.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
0151, we'll try you again. Please press *6 to unmute. There you go. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you. This is Dottie Russell from Southern Humboldt. I was wondering about joint, how we could get together our communities to figure out how we can hire somebody, get a grant so that we can get the help that we need for whether it's fire protection or whether it's improvement on properties or upgrading properties or whether it's the trash pickup. If we had some kind of, if Humboldt County had a contract with somebody that could provide certain services and they had a budget like picking up old cars or whatever, then people could afford to do some of the things that need to be done. I mean, maybe even working through the churches, whatever, you know, or nonprofit organizations, or requesting a nonprofit to be formed. But it just seems like there's certain things, I know for us, we're both 75 years old, and to suddenly, you know, pay to cut down a whole bunch of trees in a, you know, forested area would be prohibitive for us and for a lot of people. I know some people that were tenants of mine a long time ago that were houseless, and now they have a house, and there's no way that they're going to be able to pay to cut down trees. So I'd like to see how we really work together to provide the services that we need for everybody. And on that note, maybe we can save everybody from losing their houses due to being charged to cut down trees they can't afford to do. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Oh, and I also wanted to say, I'm sorry that when you called me, I wasn't on, but Dean's Department of doing code enforcement and the, you know, all the planning and everything was on the phone, absolutely reassuring me what had been done had been processed, and they knew that it had been done, and they checked it, and they're really doing a wonderful job. So although we still have a few things going on with tenants and properties of ours that are very difficult, we're trying to work through it. And the people there, Shauna has been fantastic. Warren Black has been fantastic. Dean's right there in our court with us, and we're trying to make things better. And if we ever get a CDBG grant, then it'll make it a lot easier to make Southern Humboldt, and specifically Phillipsville, a really nice place to be. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. We don't have any more callers.
Supervisor Madrone.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Just a couple quick items. One, I do realize that all the votes are not counted yet, but I wanted to thank everybody for getting out and voting. And I want to congratulate my fellow 3 supervisors, Wilson, Bohn, and Bushnell, on their standing in the election numbers at this point. Looking forward to continuing working together. Of course, the election is not completed until a month or so after, and everything gets certified. Also, I just wanted to say that you know, wet weather testing is an interesting thing with septic systems, and I would say that right now is a true wet weather testing. The ground is saturated, and there are a lot of septic systems that are failing, that are absolutely polluting the groundwater tables, mine included. And I think it's high time that we really do start looking at the sanity of composting privies when they're operated properly, as compared to septic systems that are just putting it right into the groundwater, and when the ground is saturated, we're basically putting that right into our water supply. So just wanted to make that point, and look forward to further discussions on that when it's agendized. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. I think from here, we'll move on to our Planning and Building Department. And open the public hearing. Mr. Ford.
Morning, Chair Bohn, members of the Board of Supervisors, John Ford, Cliff Johnson, and Joshua Doris, to present to you an item that we're bringing forward to propose revocation of a special permit for 23,616 square feet of outdoor cannabis cultivation. Mr. Doris will go through the rationale why, but it's basically because the site is not operated in compliance with the cannabis ordinance.
Yes, good morning, Supervisors. Thank you. I'm Joshua with Humboldt County Planning, and I'm going to give an overview on this item. And what you have before you today is a consideration of revocation of a special permit, as John said, for 23,000 square feet of new cannabis cultivation. And the site's located here. It's a little grainy, but here's Honeydew, and it's based up off Mattoll Road. Here is the site. And the project that was approved, it was a special permit for about 23,000 square feet of new cannabis cultivation, ancillary propagation area, and proposed on-site processing facility. And I wanted to say the basis of why we're here again, or basis of why we're here is the project was approved for new cultivation, and they started operations without a state license or without completing conditions of approval. And a brief history here is the project was approved by the zoning administrator in November 2022. The approval was conditioned on terms and requirements which were to be completed prior to operating. And about September 7th, 2023, Fish and Wildlife served a search warrant to the site, and they located 1,069 growing cannabis plants in 2 greenhouses, 28 pounds of processed cannabis, and multiple violations of Fish and Game Code. And following that, they then issued a notice of violation of the Fish and Game Codes. And on the same day, September 7th, 23, the Water Quality Control Board was along with Fish and Wildlife, and they also issued a notice of violation of the California water codes. And on January 30th, we sent the operator a notice of permit revocation via UPS, USPS, and email. And on February 14th, the permit revocation was sent via USPS certified, and it was signed for on March 5th, 2024. And then again on February 29th, 24, the permit revocation notice was posted to the property in 2 locations, and that's in the staff report. So, and here's a picture from Fish and Wildlife of the hoop house in question, full of plants, and here's an inside picture, obvious marijuana cultivation occurring. And again, the basis of the revocation is there was conditions of approval that needed to be completed before operating, and to date, those are incomplete. And as of March 24, the conditions of approval still have not been completed. So staff's recommendation is basically to adopt the resolution finding that the permit has been exercised contrary to the conditions of approval, and revoke the special permit pursuant to 31214 of the Humboldt County Code. And that concludes staff presentation.
Thank you. I'm going to open up this to public comment. Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the board. Is there a hand up?
Yeah, I couldn't see because of the
That's fine.
screen sharing, but we do have 0151. Please press star 6 to unmute. And again, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, this is Dottie Russell. I might be really naive, but I don't think people get so confused that they would do really outrageous things just because they wanted to. I might be wrong, but it seems to me there's a lot of misunderstanding going on with permits and who gets them and who doesn't get them and all kinds of things. And instead of revoking this, I would suggest that it should not be revoked and it should be tabled, and that somebody, one of the supervisors perhaps, you know, I probably shouldn't say who, but anyway, so one of the supervisors could go look at the situation and evaluate it and say, this is what has to stop right this minute. These are the things that might have to get done in the next 30 days. These are the things that, you know, was a misunderstanding, so just take it down. But working together in harmony is not what my experience has been at all. And I've had some horrible things happen to me because of a misunderstanding. I mean, our entire property was checked, including coming to my front door, because they said the Water Resource Board wanted to see if the well was being contaminated, which he deemed it was not. So they were on my property to look at a well, and instead they went all the way up to my front door, and it took the state resource guy to say this stuff is really expensive, nice stuff, and it's not bad. And so that was all a huge misunderstanding, and it cost us a lot of inconvenience and a lot of stress. So instead of having so much stress and revoking things, our county is failing. If you are not seeing what's happening in Southern Humboldt, I urge you to come down and see, because it's really, really outrageous what's happening and how many people are failing health-wise, stress-wise, and where they live. There's no shelter down here, as an example. So I really think we need to work together, because there are a lot of innovative, great people that can come together in harmony so that we can have some kind of economy down here. And this has to be a misunderstanding. I don't believe anybody would just apply for that, jump ahead, and do something just to wreck somebody's life.
Thank you.
Caller. Now there's a hand again. 6600. Please press star 6. Sorry. Please press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes. Six 6600. Thank you.
Yep. Yes, thank you for listening to me. This is the owner of the property, Evan Kuchalakis, dialing in. And I just want to reiterate the sentiments of the first caller. I think there was a misunderstanding here. We never diverted that water in that pond. That diversion happened with the prior owner, Mr. Scott Davies, had the property after I acquired it. So all those violations happened during the water of the pond and the diversion and everything else. Our intention was never to not comply to everything as far as the ordinances go and so forth. To the point of the previous caller, the 23,000 square foot canopy, we ended up drilling a well, and we're using well for anything. The state license, we were waiting on the PG&E Rio Grande line to be fixed in order to provide the power that we would needed, and we're waiting on PG&E to then go for the special licensing and our mistake is our consultant never paid the state fee on the licensing. One of the other things that did happen, and I take that upon myself as the owner, not knowing that, I thought that state fee had already been filled out by our ETA Humboldt consultants, and it was not. We did register and go through all the compliances with the county, and I know there was a number of things on that checklist that had to be done, but part of the reason why we drilled that $40,000 well was that we were not purposely trying to divert that water or pump out of the creek or anything to that nature. That was done from previous leased violations that came up in 2015, which I was not part of. So my intentions are to try and clean up all that mess. Unfortunately, maybe the cart came before the horse in not actually, I registered with the state, and because there were so many different multiple things on the checklist, and we believe that the fee had gotten paid because they took our consulting dollars, but never got paid. So apologize for that. And then realizing that we did not have enough power for the permits of the 6 greenhouses, or part of the power in that situation, because PG&E, there were violations that occurred, obviously, because we, I know, just from coming down from Fish and Wildlife, and I can express sentiment that we never tried to purposely divert water in a pond or do that while under my ownership at that piece of property.
He can speak.
And nor would I go through everything to not allow that to happen. That was a previous violation, and they recommended from the county level as well as Fish and the water board that we would drill the well would be the best at 3,000, we did a geological survey at 3,000 gallons per minute. I mean, at this point, I think the board has every right to take action. I hope that they would just suspend the license so we can get through this. To the previous caller's point, I was never intended to break the law or and so forth. So, that's just my personal sentiment as the owner who went for this permitting process. But the site was very confusing on how to take it from the county permit to the state licensing. And shame on me for assuming that that fee that was worked out with our consultant was supposed to be paid and never got paid. So I think the problem is there was one other altercation thing that happened where then the Fish and Wildlife came down, and those recent reports were actually older reports because there was water diverted to the water that powered the property was from the natural resource of water, but that was alleviated by drilling the pond back in October of last year. So there was no need to even go into the pond or pump from the pond or anything like that for any kind of cannabis cultivation. And from what I gathered from the property manager that was managing it, we thought the state licensing was already in process. So I apologize for that, and I'm, ready to face any kind of sanctions or things that we can help clean up. However, I think the natural growth of the pond that has taken place now and so forth, it would be very disturbing if you have to even, I don't know what the recommended process is with that, but they said by you doing the well from the county standpoint permit, it was the right thing to do, other than do water storage and everything else that is not part of the plan, right? So that's just where I sit today. I hope that you would consider a suspension so we can get through this, and I'm amenable to whatever needs to be done to move this project forward. And it was never the intention to, yes, to get to cultivation, but those plants weren't even in the cultivating state, and I didn't even realize that that was happening. That was something that was done with the anticipation that we were at the state level already. And
All right,
that's
we're starting to repeat ourselves.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm going to just interject here. So, obviously, and the property's abandoned right now, right?
No, there was, well, yes, because the one.
Because the supervisor who
It's not
should go
abandoned.
look
I
at it
wouldn't say
has.
Excuse me? I didn't hear that.
Well, the property's abandoned, and it seems like you had plenty of correspondence to do something, and you're looking at us to, it looks like your consultant, we didn't hire him, kind of screwed up continuously, and you ignored the fact and the letters, and maybe you weren't getting the letters, but as
I
is.
didn't ignore the letters. I have pancreatic cancer, and I'm a caregiver to my father. And I also had an eye surgery that prevented me from getting out there, but I will come out there on the next flight to make sure things are done properly. But go ahead, continue. Thank you.
All right, there's a couple other questions.
Thank you. I have first a question for Director Ford and then a question for the applicant. During the time that the cultivation was happening, did this person own the property? Yes?
Yes.
Okay, so then my question would be for you, sir. If you didn't know how did you tag your plants with metric tags through the state, which is a requirement? So if you, let me finish, please. Can I finish, please, sir?
Yes.
Thank you. So you would have to have purchased your clones through a licensed facility and then tagged them through with metric tags through the state, which would have required a state license. So I'm wondering, if you didn't know you didn't have a state license, were you able to accomplish that?
You want me to answer?
Yes, please.
From what I understand, those plants that were found there were from seed, I guess. So that was not purchased as clones, from what I understand. The second part is I already thought I had logged into the state and the application process, and we are in the process, and we submitted a building permit plan to the county.
Sir, I'm going to interrupt if I could. Were you able to tag your plants with the metric tags? Each plant needs to have one. Those are required, and they come from the state. Did you have those tags on your plants?
No.
Okay, thank you.
From what I don't know. Yes, no. From what I understand, no.
All right. Bringing it back to Director Ford.
Well, just before we close public comment, you still do have a couple callers, it looks like.
Okay. And then the only question I have, we revoked the permit. Does he come in, this may be enough to prompt him to fix the violations now, and then he comes back and reapplies from square one, or is the paperwork you still have any accessible at all?
This is a 2.0 permit, so they could come back in and reapply if this were revoked.
All right. Who's got
The other two.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Caller 7108. Press star 6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes.
Yes, thank you. This is a case where there were documents signed agreeing to conditions, and then the conditions weren't met, and growing, what they say, over 1,000 plants in these greenhouses, to me is a clear violation, and I think the trust that they would be, doing the right thing has proved to be wrong. And this is a problem with having the owners living in other states and having people doing the growing and then not knowing what's going on. So since this is a new application and they've had time to make corrections. Just from the paperwork, it seems that nothing's really been done. Now coming to the Board of Supervisors and hoping to get some more time. If it wasn't for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the search warrant would have happened and this situation wouldn't have been brought to the attention.
Thank you.
Caller 2223, press star 6 to unmute, and you'll also have 3 minutes. There you go.
Good morning. I think I've read between the lines, but my question is this a owner operator and live on site? It didn't sound like it was, and I'm always more sympathetic to someone that lives on site, and that's where, you know, they eat, live, and sleep, and that seems to weigh in more on how I feel about things. Thank you.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
We're done with callers.
All right, I'm going to move staff's recommendation just for the basic reason before we speak. I'm going to move staff's recommendation for the one reason is we have tried to get everybody in compliance as much as possible. And as it was said to me, it's about time we start rewarding the people that have done everything right rather than putting a crutch out there for those who are just not wanting to play by the rules.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Sure. Supervisor Bushnell.
Thank you. So as I look in the recommendations, when someone either goes away from their own permit or I think this is maybe the first one we've done since I've been on the board anyways, but there's always a decommissioning clause that happens, and I don't see that here. Can we address that? Because if we're going to suspend this permit and then not require any cleanup to happen, and I probably guess that he has an abatement and so forth and so on, but what would that process look like?
So that process, thank you through the chair, that process is a requirement of the ordinance. And when you deny a permit, there's no ability to condition a permit because the permit's not there. So what we're going to do is rely upon what the ordinance requires is that when a cannabis site ceases to operate as a cannabis site, all cannabis infrastructure be removed.
Thank you. So if his intent or the license holdee, if his intent is to come into compliance and to seek his permit again, how would you deal with that?
We would try to work with them to allow certain things to remain, but we'd certainly want the tops taken off the greenhouses so that it's easy to identify that the site's in compliance.
And my last question would be, with those greenhouses, were there permits pulled for the building of, no?
No.
Really? Okay, sorry, thanks.
Can we make sure of one thing, that we, if we revoke this and goes like that, since the property seems to be abandoned as is, that we actually go make sure that there isn't any more degradation of the environment taking place. I'm not saying clean it up, but stop whatever degradation, anything that can be done on a basis and put a lien against it, just so we don't have any more degradation as we go through the process. Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. I think some of these things are obvious, but I still think it's worth noting that, this issue of the water diversion is deeply problematic, and it is hard to understand how the operator didn't know that they were utilizing a surface water diversion versus a well. And then the issue that Supervisor Bushnell so effectively pointed out, I don't think it would, I couldn't in good conscience support the continuation of this permit, given that essentially without being state licensed, this product is what's undercutting the market for those who have complied with the rules. And I've read, quite a bit recently about that and really come to understand that the non-legal market is still flourishing, and it's dangerous and significantly problematic for people who are following the rules. So while I also am reading in between the lines here and hearing that it sounds like the owner is away due to family matters and the operator has been operating, remotely from the owner, there is a mechanism by which the owner can reapply if they can meet all the criteria. And given that, I'm totally comfortable moving forward with this.
George Wilson?
I associate myself with all those comments. Just in reflection of what we just went through with Measure A, where there was a lot of gnashing about the expansion or the potential expansion of cannabis and what we're going to do about that in the ordinance, I think, and the environmental impacts of that. I think what we're going to really be dealing with here in the future is the environmental impacts of contraction, not expansion. And we could see this coming. Even though we could have all the requirements in the world to clean up sites, if those sites no longer have the ability to generate revenue, there isn't anything to pay for that cleanup, and there isn't anything, and it devalues those properties to such an extent that we're going to see more and more abandonments. We need to figure out a way to, in some kind of programmatic way, to move these sites, properties, and landscapes back into just a more naturalized, productive system. I just want to put that. I mean, if this is a harbinger, and I want to see what we can do to talk about that later. Because we aren't seeing expansion. It is not the issue for us. This is what we're going to see. And if anyone can, drive around in some of these communities and see, even from the road, a lot of the detritus, I guess you'd say, or some of the abandoned sites that we're seeing. And this isn't just hoop houses. This is now unmaintained roads, unmaintained sites. It's both illegal and legal. This is something we're gonna have to deal with. So, thanks for indulging me in this.
George Madrone.
Thank you, Chair. Well, we saw this coming, as was just mentioned, for quite a long time. We've entered the period of what I would call after A, and it's both expansion, contraction, and all kinds of things. And this property, along with many properties, actually do have the opportunity for income generation through what has always been the tradition, and that is forest management. The value of Douglas fir and redwood and other species is quite high, and there's a lot of exemptions out there through CAL FIRE to do appropriate thinning, not clear cutting, but appropriate thinning and limbing to reduce fuel hazards, fire hazards, as well as provide some income generation to do that. There's never been a better time to really start managing these forests that are now like 30 to 50-year-old Douglas and tan oak timber. So that's there, and I just, this stuff is long overdue, and it's just the start of this board trying to reel in a lot of this stuff. There have been many operators operating illegally for years, thinking they could just get away with it, and that is so unfair to those responsible applicants that are operating their farms within the local and state codes and doing the right things by these properties. So it's extremely unfair to them to allow this to continue. And these revocations are just the start. As some may know, many notices have gone out from the planning department about if you have back taxes that are owed or back fees, that you have to have a payment plan in place by the end of March, or your permits could be suspended. So that there would be no growing this summer. And that's going to produce a list of people who are not compliant, and that will become a focus list for code enforcement and for sheriff operations. And I think it's well overdue for that to happen. I think there was ample opportunity for this particular applicant and operator to bring things into compliance, and it's their responsibility to manage their consultants and make sure things are being done according to the rules. So I appreciate the department working hard to try and bring these kinds of projects forward for us to consider revocation, and I fully support that. Thank you.
It's been moved and seconded. Nikki, you want to take a vote?
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Chair Bohn?
Yes.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
And Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
All right, John, second one.
Thank you, Chair Bohn, members of the Board of Supervisors, John Ford, Cliff Johnson, and this time we have Michael Kine coming up. This is another item we're bringing forward for revocation of a conditional use permit that was approved to allow 23,693 square feet of outdoor cannabis cultivation. And Mr. Kine will now give you the details on that.
All right. Good morning, Board. I'll start the presentation. I've never actually got to do this before. All right. Learning secret. All right. So as Director Ford said, this is for PLN 11207 CUP Grebo LLC. It is located out on the 36.
Do you, excuse me, do you have your mic on? And pull it closer.
It's on, but I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for interruption.
It is on Highway 36. You can see my cursor here is Bridgeville, and then on the far side of the screen is the county line. This is an overview of the property from September of 2023. The entry would be in the top right corner. You can see multiple skeletons from the hoop houses, so they do not currently have their plastic on. I do want to point out the random white spots are some pieces of plastic that have blown off in the last year. So a project summary, this project was filed for on September 22nd, 2016, and approved by the board, by the Planning Commission on, whoops, it's going backwards, apologies, was approved by the Planning Commission on June 8th, 2020. The permit in the property was then transferred to a new operator, Maleo Lukic, on July 7th, 2020. A compliance agreement was then signed by the permit holder on May 7th, 2021, and post-approval inspections were completed in July 2022 and in February of 2023. Some issues that were found since the date of the approval. The permit holder still has 10 out of 16 conditions of approval not completed. Solid waste was found and improperly stored on the site, and you'll see a couple photos of that quite later. This violated several of the conditions 4B, 14B, and 17B. During both inspections, we had found discarded lighting ballast, plastic sheeting, construction materials, used soil, discarded trellis materials, and household items around the property. There was also non-operational vehicles stored on the property as well, a fifth wheel and 2 non-operational vehicles, one of which was removed during the first inspection. Water monitoring issues also occurred. There was no water meter, and this was an issue regarding reporting. This was part of condition number 11 and also is required by the North Coast Regional Water Quality Control Board. Another issue was artificial lighting. They had been approved for their greenhouse to have artificial lighting, but nowhere else on the property. It was found in multiple greenhouses on the property. Furthermore, there were violations of building requirements. They had applied and were approved for ag exempt buildings status, but during the inspection, it was found that multiple buildings had unapproved electrical code violations and electrical conditions, and that included the lighting as well. And then the application and inspection fee requirements as part of the conditions and the code have gone unpaid. There's a current balance of $4,164 owed to the Planning and Building Department, and approximately $17,000 in outstanding Measure S taxes. Here are a couple photos of the property. This was from the inspection in 2022. You can see a lot of the garbage that was there. Most of this, or some of it, had been cleaned up prior to the second inspection in 2023. The large pile where that man is standing was gone. The picture on the right, that was still there during the second inspection. This is an example of their amendment and hazardous materials container. As you can see, they did not use double containment. Several of those items had spilled and had stained, so obviously nothing had been cleaned up. On the right, you can see this was from the second inspection. More trash was still on the premises, including monofilament. Here is an example of one of their greenhouses. You can see that the tarps are off. It looks as if everything had been abandoned. The lighting can be seen as a great example here. And then on the right, there is another example of uncoded electrical work that was never approved. In this example, you can see the skeletons up on the top left, sheeting on the right. This was obviously windblown from the past winter. This photo was taken in February of 2023, and as I showed in that overview photo, September of 2023, that sheeting was still there. This is an example of just one of the random electrical and lighting ballasts that was just on the hillside. Example of the fifth wheel that was stored, the soil bags, and then also the illegal truck storage. Correspondence attempts. On July 18th, 2020, the first inspection report had gone out. On August 17th, 2022, an email was sent to get any updates from the applicant. On January 17th, 2023, a letter was sent out stating a possibility of revocation if we did not get contacted. And that was the only contact we've had from the permit holder basically since. We were able to arrange another inspection on February 2nd, 2023. An inspection report sent later that day. He was later contacted by phone and letter on November 22nd. No response. November 29th by phone, email, and letter. On December 4th, he was sent another email, two more phone calls, no response, as well as another letter. December 11th was also a time we sent more letters, excuse me. Another letter, emails and phone calls, still no response. On February 14th, 2024, a certified letter stating revocation was sent out to the operator, and on March 1st, 2024, we posted a permit revocation notice on the property. It is the department's recommendation to find that this permit has been exercised contrary to the terms of the conditions of approval, and that the use for which this permit has been granted has been conducted as a public nuisance. We propose to revoke the conditional use permit pursuant to section 312-14 of the Humboldt County Code.
Well, if anything comes out of this, the county is doing inspections, contrary to popular belief. Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. Through the Chair, Director Ford, do you know if there's been arrangements for, to set up, to repay the Measure S?
Letters have gone out as well as emails. We have gotten no response from this particular permit holder whatsoever.
Michael,
Have you-
excuse me for a second. Can I ask if is the applicant online or in the audience? There's your answer. Go
But
ahead.
can I-
Yeah.
Do you know if arrangements have been made to pay the Measure S through the tax department?
We don't have that information right now.
Okay, maybe Amy's listening. Also, what was the water source?
Spring-fed pond.
So the spring fed the pond and then they pumped out of the pond and they had no water meter on the pond,
Correct.
on the line coming out of the pond? Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
And this property would be considered abandoned also. So as these properties come up, as we go up and as we clean these up, I still think there's enough value in most of these properties to get them cleaned up by the new owner. A lot of these, and a majority of these, will have no marketable timber, as the site in Honeydew has no marketable timber. So we can say that, and because preferably it's on ag lands to start with. So, and Supervisor Bushnell has, I'll stop.
I'm sorry, I just have one last question. Is there a home on the property?
No.
No, okay, thank you.
It's technically abandoned from what I understand.
They have not utilized that property since at least the first inspection in 2022.
Okay. Supervisor Madrone?
Do we know what the status of the property taxes are? Are they in arrears there as well? I see Amy's on, but it may not be easy to just pull that up.
APN's on there.
We don't have the answer for that.
Okay. I guess the process would be, again, if we revoke this, then there would be cleanup orders based on removing all the infrastructure, as you stated on the previous application. And then, of course, if fees are unpaid, a lien could be produced for that, or would that be waiting until the property taxes are 5 years in arrears, et cetera?
So for our fees, we don't have the ability to issue liens for that. So that goes to collections and probably would never be paid. The two options for cleanup of this, one would be for the county to do an abatement, issue a notice to abate, notice of violation, and do the abatement. The other thing that we're finding success with, but maybe overwhelming the firm that's doing it for us, is doing a receivership, whereby a receiver takes control of the property, cleans the property up, sells the property, and then is able to receive the benefits of doing that work.
Okay. If we did do notice of abatement, notice of violation, and there's cleanup, we can do that cleanup and then put a lien on at that point?
That is correct.
Like we did in Oric with Green Valley, et cetera?
Right.
Okay. And of course, we can always do a lien as well for back taxes, or it would go to auction, I guess.
It goes to tax sale, right?
Can it actually be auctioned if there's cleanup of the property required?
Well, I don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
Normally, what we would do is not auction it until we're done cleaning it up.
Okay.
And then the treasurer tax collector is very good about working with the planning and building department and communicating about these things.
Yeah.
So that we can get that done so that it can then be placed onto the tax roll. And then that would be the recruitment cost minimum bid amount that would be accepted for that.
All right, thank you.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Thank you. So as we, mentioned on the last item, I think we anticipate seeing more of this. And I'm very interested in exploring the process of receivership further, and, looking at that in batches as these, come forward. Just wanted to note that, that seems like a worthwhile effort to address cleanup and ensure that, there's, we're able to realize some recompense for all of this process, which is, going to be on the, otherwise on the backs of taxpayers.
Supervisor Wilson?
I do think that there will be properties where the cleanup exceeds the value of the property. I'm sure that's going to happen. So we're going to figure that out. I will reference some years ago when we used to have these underground storage tank cleanup fund. It was a fund paid for through gas taxes to clean up both abandoned and leaky underground storage tanks for fuel. I think it's probably time to start talking about a similar program through the state. I know the folks in from our cannabis industry don't want to hear these words, but it may be that there could be a tax or at least a diversion of the tax already at the resale, similar to the gas tax that we had, that would help fund these cleanups. So it's just something to start. We have to think about what the revenue source is going to be to address this. Only throwing that out there as a concept. It's obviously beyond the scope of our discussion today, but we're seeing this trend, and we have to think of throw out some ideas on how we might move forward with this. So, thanks.
And a lot of these cleanups are, we get a pretty high quote, but you remember, if we're paying for them, it's prevailing wage and everything else. If a property owner wants to go in, it's much like buying a fixer-upper. He can do it himself and reduce the value, and he's going to live on the property and clean it up for himself. So, but I think we might be surprised, because that's the one thing we're not doing, as once was said, we're not making any more land. So I would entertain a motion, or I would provide the motion of staff's recommendation, but I'll do public comment, but.
Do you want to do that first, or did you want to do the motion?
Do you have any public comment?
Okay.
You have a hand up?
I do. I have two hands up. 0151, *6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes.
Hello, it's Dottie Russell again, talking about the lack of communication that takes place. So it seems to me, when something like this is going on, an appropriate thing to do is to find out if the person is alive, and if not, how to contact the relatives or other people involved. Now, the reason that I'm mentioning this is that personally, I went through and am still going through a very bizarre situation where there was a transposed two numbers, and I was sold a piece of property in escrow with a regular escrow company, the whole thing totally legit, everything fine, no cannabis, just a normal escrow, and two numbers were transposed, and I now own a piece of property that is not what I bought. And I have been working for years trying to correct this problem, and I have not been able to. I've been to the planning department. I've said who owns this other piece of property, what's happening with it, and they're like, oh, we don't have any way to contact them. Well, it's not a wonder you don't have any way to contact them, because I'm supposed to own it. And so you don't have any way to contact it, so like, how is that supposed to be resolved? But this is what I mean. I mean, there's all kinds of lack of communication. If you're not sending out a tax bill, or maybe the bill was returned, you send out a registered letter. Was it signed for? If it wasn't signed for, why didn't you do return receipt requested? I mean, there does have to be some communication and responsibility of whoever is supposed to know who owns these properties. I should be able to go to the county clerk's office or the planning department and say who owns this property that I paid for. But nobody will tell me. Nobody can tell me where to find this person, because this person is the owner and we paid to for this piece of property, but nobody knows where he is. And so because nobody knows where he is, you can't tell me where my property is that I bought. Nobody in Humboldt County can tell me. So if this is as screwed up as it is for me, just imagine if somebody died and their kid or their nephew or whatever is supposed to be inheriting this property and nobody's reaching out to them. Return receipt requested is really simple. If you don't get a receipt returned to you, then find somebody, some organization, whatever it is, to figure out who these people are. The coroner knows how to reach people all the time. I know because my nephew died on a street bench in Eureka, and they reached me right away. So I know firsthand that the coroner can help. So if nobody else can figure out how to reach these people.
Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. We have one more caller in the queue. Caller 2223, please press *6 to unmute yourself. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning. Moving forward with how we're going to start seeing some of these properties, just seeing what we have going on this morning here, I think we're going to have to move faster. And I think when we see a property that has that amount of garbage on an initial visit, the writing is possibly on the wall. And yes, I think we're going to have to come up with some sort of program to get these cleaned up and to, look at some of the environmental benefits that we could leave behind some of these properties. Making sure we reseed with the native grasses for that area, making sure that we maybe put a proper cover crop or floral mix in some of these beds that were developed, and that some erosion control, maybe in the form of hay bales or straw bales, are left behind on some of the roads to naturally bring it back to a state. And I do agree with Supervisor Bohn. They are making more land, and there is tremendous value. And, the sweat equity that can be passed on to the next person with some of these resales could be amazing. By having just some sort of lien or something that goes along with it, that can be refunded or trust or something. I'm probably not using the right terminology, but something that, after it's cleaned up, it can be refunded or something. I don't know. But yeah, we definitely have to move faster, I think, and really develop some guidelines to how these can be brought back to the natural state or close to it. Sometimes infrastructure is good, and we don't want to just take away valuable infrastructure, homes, and so forth. So thank you for listening and taking my comment this morning.
Thank you. With Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. I was wondering, Alicia, were you able to get the tax information?
Yeah, they currently are not set up on a payment plan, and there is a balance due of roughly $17,000 for past due Measure S.
Thank you so much.
All right. So, Director Ford.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to respond to a couple comments and say we do not take lightly the gravity of what a revocation is. And one of the things that we are very intentional about is due process. And we try to contact people. You saw, as Mr. Conning put up there,
11 letters.
Yes.
To multiple addresses, mind you.
Two of
So
them.
somebody must know that if he's dead.
2 of them were return receipt requested. So I just want to, just for the public's benefit, understand that we are very intentional about trying to reach out to people and using the addresses, the contact information that they have put on their application. So they give us that information. And then that is the other side of it in terms of moving faster. We would love to move faster, but then due process comes into play, whereby we have to give everybody the opportunity to be responsive and to make changes. We don't want to be here. Thank you.
Understood. And with that, there is, like I said, there's values in the property. I appreciate your department, Sheriff's Department, and the things that this board and past board has done, because in 2015 we had an estimated 15,000 grows in Humboldt County. We don't have 15,000 grows anymore. So with that, do I have a motion? Supervisor Rowe?
I'll move approval of staff recommendation.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Nikki?
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Now we're ready. Chair Bohn.
Yes.
Thank you, Supervisor Bushnell.
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo.
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone.
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Chair Bohn, may I ask a quick question?
Yes. Yeah, I'm
Director
going
Ford,
to.
do you need direction around the receivership item coming back or a policy, discussion about that?
I think we took that as an affirmation that that's what the board would like us to be pursuing.
Okay. And I am going to, on the next
Quick
item.
comment. Could I make a quick comment, please?
Yes.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. I know there was, estimated to be 15,000 grows, but many thousands of those were pretty small grows. And I will say that the one thing that's actually worked really well about our cannabis ordinance is the personal use aspect of it. And there are thousands of small personal use grows happening in this county. And they're being done well, and they're being done environmentally in a sound way. So let's just not forget that part of it. And actually, a lot of those grows are quite similar in size to what used to be, grows back in the day. Yes, there was in that 15,000 many that got very, very large, but there were also many that were, 10 to 20 plant gardens back in the day. So just don't want to lose sight that that part of the ordinance has worked extremely well, and that there are thousands of small personal grow farms out there that are working well. So,
That's the 100 square foot.
yeah, well, it could be 400 square feet on 5 acres or more.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, I'm going to, on the next item, I would like to switch our strategic plan and go to number 3, the utility payment options for county-owned veterans, because Lori Cook has to get out of here, and I don't want to put up with her all weekend cranky.
Good morning, Chair Bohn, members of the board. Sean Meehan here for Public Works today to talk about the utility payments for county-owned veterans halls. And Nikki's got a brief presentation on the screen, so I'll just take you through that quickly. So just an overview of what we're to talk about. So county owns 5 veterans halls. They're located in Arcata, Eureka, Fortuna, Ferndale, and Garberville. For discussion today specifically is utility costs at Arcata, Fortuna, and the Ferndale Veterans Halls. Historically, insofar as possible, the county has provided annual funding in the form of stipends to the veterans groups to help offset the cost of utilities. These stipend amounts are outdated, and the veterans groups have requested an increase in the stipend amounts. And the management agreements, we have management agreements with the veterans groups for each of these facilities. Those are also outdated for each of the 3 halls that we're talking about today. And so any future agreements or amendments to those will incorporate any direction you give us today. So here's our current process for assessing and paying these stipends. So the first step there is the stipend payment is budgeted during the annual budget process with your board. Second step, the veterans will compile their utility costs on a calendar year basis. They submit those to the county in the first quarter of the following calendar year, and then the county will pay those utility stipends after that budget is adopted and those stipends are finalized. So with that said, if your board elects to modify that process, we have 3 options for you to consider. Option A is the Public Works will manage and pay those utility costs directly for each of these veterans halls, the 3 that we're talking about. Staff will track the annual costs to budget accordingly. This option would require a supplemental budget of $34,313 for the current fiscal year. Option B would have the veterans continue their management of the utility accounts. The costs would be brought to current actual costs that have been submitted to the county, and then they could be adjusted annually in the future based on CPI. That would also require the same supplemental budget of $34,313 to bring those costs to actual. And then the final option, option C, the veterans would continue management of their utility accounts, and your board may fund a specific amount at each veterans hall based on information provided by the veterans or by staff. So those are the three options that we have for you, and take any questions.
Supervisor Wilson?
Thanks for this. I mean, we've talked about this before. I know, can't remember, a year ago, 2 years ago. What about, I mean, have we talked about it, these utilities in terms of upgrades? I mean, what's outdated isn't just what's being paid, but the actual systems that we're talking about. The heating systems, the insulation, the efficiency, those are all very outdated too. So we're just talking about paying more for these inefficient systems. Where is there any sort of conversation around the sort of update? We've had these facilities for a long time. Vets have had them for a long time. Where's the efficiency in this, and are there, is there talks around getting them updated with heat pump systems, solar arrays, battery storage, all the stuff that we have seen good programs for? I mean, I'm just sort of wondering, it's like we're talking about $34,000 a year, right? And so there's a certain bump to that. That's the increase, is that what we're talking about, or that's just the increase?
Yeah, that's the increase.
So I mean, I'm just saying, if I had a staff person working half-time or quarter-time to actually find the funding to do the work to upgrade these locations, I think, we're talking that's actually an investment. This is just paying for status quo. So I was kind of wondering about that. And then also, is there, some of us up here, have rentals, and when you pay for the utilities outright, typically the tenants aren't as concerned about being efficient about using those things. And so I was kind of wondering what's the incentive in this for that? And so I was just wondering if those were some of the thoughts you guys have had.
Yeah.
Are we going to piece question by question, or do you want to?
You can manage this however you'd like. If you want to wait till the end, that's all good for me.
Yeah, because and I'm going to tag on to what Supervisor Wilson has said. We have all tried to. I don't want to make examples. The heating system in Ferndale, we've tried for 10 years to fix that. 10 years to fix a heating system at a veterans hall. I think the idea of doing an array of solar where it can be done, and battery packs, and taking us into the future, which is what we would be requiring of any new building, is, I think, admirable and a great idea, and costly right now in a time where we don't have it. But I would certainly like to see better answers for all of us when we ask about getting something done in the hall, of how we're going to work forward to getting it done, rather than reasons we're not getting it done. So if we could include that into this request of Supervisor Wilson, I think it's a great idea as we go forward with this. Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. I really appreciate this topic being brought up, and I wanted to point out that the Redwood Coast Energy Authority, that team was able to work with 16 fire stations to receive a grant just a few weeks ago, a $3 million grant to do exactly that, to improve the energy systems at fire stations. That grant funding was specifically for high-risk areas, but since the Veterans Halls also do serve a variety of community functions, including in emergencies. I think that pursuing that type of similar funding could be an opportunity. And if we have not already had an energy and conservation evaluation of the facilities by our CEA, I'd be happy to help coordinate that as our representative. So those are a couple options I see. I think because it would be hard to go as an RCEA board member and say, we should pursue grant funding that really benefits the county. But since these veterans, without also including other jurisdictions in that who are part of that board, but since these facilities serve communities throughout the county, including some that lie within cities, I think it would be, I don't want to speak for the board, but I think there would be interest in pursuing that or at least conversing about it. So I'd be happy to bring that up if that's something that folks would like me to pursue.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Yeah, speaking of RCEA, they just had a wonderful workshop on Saturday morning over in Arcata on heat pumps for space heating as well as water heating. As I think some of us may know, there's tremendous advancements happening in that arena, so I appreciate Supervisor Wilson bringing that up. I think we all, as a county, want to work with our veterans to try and figure this puzzle out. I wish all of our utility bills could stay within a CPI, but right now they're doubling. And if you have events between 4 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the afternoon or evening, the rates are phenomenal. I mean, people are, just for a home are paying $500 to $1,000 a month for their heating and electrical uses in their houses. So I'm hoping that maybe we can get PG&E to come in and do an agenda item and talk with our community about and with RCEA as well to talk about options for grants to kind of do some of the things Supervisor Arroyo was talking about, but also how to help people. I mean, right now people are piling up their PG&E bills, unable to pay, and there's programs out there to assist people with that, so it might be very advantageous for us as a board to agendize this. I'll give Allison Talbot at PG&E a call and see about if we could perhaps put that together and maybe talk with Supervisor Arroyo about should that be a teaming up with RCEA, because they do energy audits and the rest. And I think the two of them, we could have a really excellent agenda item to inform the public. A little off topic, but I do want to say that I think it is important not only to figure out how to work with the vets on these utility bills, but how to also move into the future with some of the things that are being talked about here. So,
Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. Supervisor Bohn and myself, along with CAO, and Sean was there, I think, had a meeting with the, I think it was Ferndale and Fortuna. I can't remember if Arcata was there, but we did talk about efficiencies within heating and RCEA. So thank you, Supervisor Arroyo, for being willing to organize that. However, I don't know, because the vets groups had said that they were going to maybe reach out. So I'm interested in hearing public comment, and that was on our radar to try to be more efficient in those buildings with the heating. They're large buildings. They're, what Supervisor Wilson said, they don't have insulation, and yeah, they're very inefficient for the heating, which is where a lot of the money goes. The one in Fortuna, I'm not familiar with Arcata or Ferndale. I know Ferndale doesn't have a lot of heat, but the ceilings are huge and the heat just goes up, and it's cold in there often.
The heating system in Ferndale was put in 25 years ago, and I think they have run their riot act. So, with that said, I had a meeting with the new VP of Northern California here a while ago, and I actually brought this up if we could help with this. So, these are all things in the works. It's just getting them going, and I know that it's a good way to approach this, but I think we'll get back on topic on how we're going to approach this day. So what I'll do is I'll open this up to public comment for the veterans group. I think as you guys all sit there, who's going to speak for you guys today? That's what I thought. Al drew the short straw.
Hi, I'm Al Dunnigan. I'm past commander of VFW Post 2207. Also a member of American Legion Post 205 out of Fortuna. I've been Secretary Treasurer of the House Committee for the past several years, 10 years, and I compiled some records. We incorporated as an NPO, and at that time it started keeping detailed records of the cost of utilities. And as you all know, the contract we're talking about originally made with Humboldt County was 1991, and at that time it was decided that they would pay $5,502 a year annual stipend to cover the cost of our utilities. Utilities being water, lights, garbage, and phone. Starting with 2015, our utility expenses were $10,209. That left a deficit of roughly $4,707. Going up to 16, costs increased. Our utility expenses were $11,060, leaving us a deficit of $5,558. 17, costs are now $12,903, deficit $7,401. 2018, $13,989 total cost of utilities, deficit $8,487. We could continue on like this. I'll go up to 2023. 2023, our costs for utilities were $23,365. 2023, we also received an increase in the amount of stipend from $5,502 to $7,208. That left us a deficit of only $16,157. To recap, over the 10-year period of time, the total cost of utilities were $128,898. The total amount of stipend received during that 10-year period of time was $55,722, leaving a deficit for that 10-year period of $73,176. And what we'd like to do is recoup some of that cost. We've been tasked to maintain the operation and maintenance of the building. We've had to spend our own money to do that, and our resources are quite limited. We have fundraisers, as you know, from time to time, pancake breakfast every second Sunday, and that helps quite a bit, and we rent the building out. But that income doesn't cover it. We're struggling. Last year, Bear River Casino decided to sponsor a golf tournament, military golf tournament, and we got the proceeds of that. We netted $30,000 out of that proceed, out of that golf tournament. That helped like the Dickens, but we still had this, with that taken into account, our deficit was still, for the year, was about $30,000. So we're looking to recoup some of the cost of money. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have regarding our utilities costs.
Supervisor Rowe?
Well, it's not exactly about the utilities cost, Al, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on my question, which is sometimes it's surprisingly hard to find venues for us to hold events or to support community-based organizations that are in the public interest, to hold events with minimal cost, essentially. So groups approach me all the time asking if, we have a facility they can use, and who essentially don't have any money to rent the facility. I'm curious what you think about each of the halls working with their respective supervisor to host a few events per year at the facilities without incurring a cost, especially if we move forward with covering all the utility costs. Do you have thoughts about that?
Well, we do kind of work with the county. Some of the things we do with the county, we hold vaccination clinics every month at our building. And we charge for utilities, and we charge, they're open, 8 hours, doors open, utilities. And Michelle has an office in our building that does weekly office hours there. So, yeah, we'd be happy to work with the supervisors. Right now, we rent the building quite a bit. A lot of nonprofit organizations have events there, the Kiwanis Club, the Fortuna Kiwanis Rotary Club, Friends of the Library. They just got through having a big event this past weekend that lasted 3 days. Again, doors wide open. We charge them $800 because they're a nonprofit organization. All nonprofit organizations get a break. Veterans, that building is primarily for veterans. So when veterans have an event there, they get a break because it is, and just cover the cost of utilities. And that's where we are.
Okay. Supervisor Wilson?
If under this proposal, we covered the cost of utilities, would you stop charging for the cost of utilities?
Pardon me?
If under this proposal, we, the county, covered the cost of utilities, would then the veterans organization stop charging for utilities? Because what you're telling me right now is you're charging for utilities, and under this proposal, it would be paid for. So I was just wondering, would you then not charge for utilities?
No. The rent is based on the cost of utilities, is what we charge them.
But I think you're cumulative, if I'm not mistaken, from our meeting and everything else, you're clumping utilities into you or Hummel or whoever has to come down, open it, close it, make sure it's cleaned, and then the wear and tear, bathroom and everything else. That's all clumped under the term of utilities, which is a major part of it also, right? Because you guys, I know, do it for free, but there should be you do it for the good of the order would be the word, but you do it for the good of the order, but then for the maintenance of the building, that money is used for that. So I think that came up at the meeting, if I'm not mistaken. So utilities has a pretty broad term.
Thanks for the clarification.
So, Madrone?
Yeah, I note that Willow Creek wasn't listed. They do have a Veterans Hall. And is that because it's run by the Community Service District, or what's the arrangement there?
They're privately owned.
Privately owned?
Yes.
Okay. Versus
county owned.
Okay. I think that's the only Vets Hall in the 5th District, right? It's a very big district, almost half the county, and only one Vets Hall privately owned. But it is the CSD that then manages that, I believe. Is that correct? Out in Willow Creek? Privately owned by who?
I don't know. I think it's the veterans themselves own the building, if I'm not
Own the
mistaken.
building, and it's in the Veterans Park on Kim 2. Anyway, just curious. I'll find out more about that.
I always thought Jack Foster run it.
Thank you.
All right. I'll bring you back up if there's any more questions, okay?
Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Appreciate it. And Juan, you utilized the building last Tuesday.
That's what I'm up
and,
here.
And have for about the last 60, 70, 80 years. So.
Absolutely. I am one of those people that cannot afford to host a event, and the veterans host us every 2 years, twice a year. Now for 10 days. Fortuna Veterans Memorial is historically one of our most active voting sites. Yeah, I encourage you to help them however you can. I know the budget stuff, but there are a lot of savings that the county sees in this collaboration as we move towards this idea of finding every dollar where we could find it. Relationships like these are where we're going to find those dollars. The second piece I wanted to ask is I noticed that it wasn't just about money, but also terms in terms of these agreements. In the agreement currently is mentioned to them providing space for elections, and I hope that you continue that agreement going forward for election-related activities. Thank you.
I think it's because of them we have elections, so yeah, I think that'll probably be.
I'll be quick, I promise. I'm Kevin. I'm the first vice commander at Arcata Veterans Hall, and I just wanted to answer both your questions from my perspective. We do events for free. We do memorials for free. We used to do veterans for free, but I just don't have it in me to ask for money for someone to do a memorial. We also have a group of homeschooled children and their families at our hall right now. They meet every Tuesday. So we do open it up to the public for free when we can. And Supervisor Wilson, we would still have to charge for the rentals, for toilet paper, for stuff like that. And we also throw free family events. Like in 2 weeks, we have an Easter egg hunt that's going to cost $500, $600. And there's going to be 300-400 kids there. So I just wanted you guys to get my perspective on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Dave Griffiths from the Post 6353 Ferndale. And we fall in the same situation. I mean, you guys have talked about us a lot. I've got the utility bills. I have enough if you all want to see one. But, you know, this contract went to 1991. I don't know what the stipend was way back then, but I think it was probably the same that we had up until last year. Never saw the increase. Rentals go to help support that. If you want to put those options back up on the board about A, B, and C, we want to do B, option B, only because if we don't have responsibility for our own halls, yes, you're going to help us out, but you know, people don't take care of their things if they don't pay for it or help out. You know, out. If it's all been supported, you see how the homeless, they don't take care of their stuff. We want to take care of our stuff, but we also need your help. We have windows that are terrible. You know, you're talking about things that are not cohesive to keeping the heat in. Our windows are bad. Our roofs leak. You know, there's a lot of things that need to be done. And we thank you for this work that you have done for us with our kitchen and stuff. That helps out. But, you know, we can't rent our building without that heat. And, I mean, we do. And luckily, you know, I mean, it's not that often, but we do get it rented out. And, but, you know, for past expenses to be compensated, I mean, yeah, we're $49,000 in the hole, but we did rent the building out to help offset those costs. But I wanted to speak out that, you know, option B is where Ferndale would like to be, where we'd still like to stipend but I'd like to have it increased to help meet those needs. Because right now our utility costs are $11,000 a month, or I'm sorry, a year. And you know, we're only getting, right now, we're raised to $6,500.
Imagine what it would be if you had heat.
And if we had heat, but if we had better, but if we had windows and stuff like that, we might be better too. Thank you.
Well, I think from what I've heard from this board, whatever we do, I think it's going to come with a caveat that we look at the effectiveness of where we're spending our money, whether it be with RCEA or whoever, to go out and get those monies to make sure. And I'd like it to see if we could do it quicker than we get a lot of things done, because it's just going down the road. And what scares me to death is we have leaks in Ferndale. We've did a retrofit in Fortuna, so they got a lot of upgrades, some not as, you know, as efficient as we thought they would be, but they did get some money. We all know the history of the seismic and everything that was done at the Eureka. I know Arcata needed work after the fire and a few other things. And so as we move forward, we need to address this. I know we don't have the expendable money to do this, but we've got to find a way to make these more effective and then work with our veterans. So I think that's a priority. Otherwise, the primest example we have is what we did by kicking the can down the road or not doing anything, is having to tear down a facility because we let it get too far along. And that's unacceptable. And we all know it's unacceptable. I'm not sitting here preaching. We all know that's wrong. And we're paying the piper for it now for that. So hopefully we can address these things before we have the dry rot set up in the walls, the window frames rot and everything else. So Supervisor Arroyo.
Thank you. So I heard several people mention option B, which is quite similar to option A, except for, you know, each veterans organization would be managing the utility payments and then submitting annually versus those utility bills going essentially to Public Works. It sounded like that was the preference, which, you know, is fine with me, but I'm wondering whether there's any clarification that staff could offer about what you've heard around preferences, or you know, perhaps Al has some clarifying comments since you have been nominated to speak on behalf of folks.
Well, okay, and just before you go, Sean, I'd like,
Oh, okay.
I think we're going to get a clarification. Okay.
Thank you. I'm Walt Charlton, and I'm with the Fortuna Post 205 American Legion. I kind of have a somewhat unique perspective on this. For a couple, 3 years, I was the rental manager. Watched the type of clients we had in there. Now I'm currently on the House Committee for the last couple of years. We did, too, discuss the three options presented about as we move forward with this. I would just like to say option A and option B are very similar. I think one big concern with the difference of it is that option A seems the simple approach where we get the bills monthly and the bill to address goes to the county. With option B, we would have to use our limited cash reserves, let's say 23,000, 20, whatever the number is going to be next year, and not be able to use that money for that entire year for community service or some improvements to the other thing, and then get a check at the end of the year and budget based on the cost of living index, as I understand it. And I think we all feel that utilities are increasing at a faster rate than that. So I just like to get it out there too, is that I think all of the veterans group, I wish we'd also consider option A as well as B before we have further discussions. Thank you.
Gary?
Hey, Rick.
How you doing, bud?
I'm Gary Brownell. I'm the treasurer for the American Legion in Fortuna. We're all vets, okay? We signed a contract with the government so you guys can sit up there. And that's the truth. Because if we didn't do our job, you wouldn't be there. There was a contract you guys signed in '91, and you haven't honored it. I bet you I can count the years on one hand that you have done what you said you would do, and that's pay for our utilities. We've been shorthanded on everything. And, you know, I feel like you guys are, you know, messing with us. You know, we're not agreeing, none of us are. We're not agreeing to A, B, C, D, whatever. We're going to have a conference about the whole thing, and with our lawyer and stuff. But, you know, it'd be nice if you guys would honor what you said you would do. We did our part. I've lost a lot of friends in Vietnam, you know, because of what you guys, you know, so you can sit up there. I don't think any of you are vets. And I'm sorry, I was going to say if I'm mistaken, I apologize. Then you know what the honor means to us. So that's all I want to say. Thanks,
Gary.
Yeah, I'm Mel Thompson. I'm past commander, Ferndale VFW, and current chairman of the Housing Committee. I'm just going to address going forward. We do need a contract, a new contract, which will address this issue. But as far as the three options, option A is going to be an extra cost to the taxpayer for the county, and that's the taxpayer. And Ferndale chose option B. If you have to go with the three options as a guide, I mean, that's a starting point. That's all it is. It's a starting point in a new contract. But I would like to see the veterans keep control of that part of the bills. I realize there's a time lapse before we get to the stipend. That's called life. We'll get over it. But we need a contract. I like to use option B as a format for it. That we need to get the contract done now. And as far as the stipend, one thing I heard recommended was maybe go back the last 3 years and take an average of that for a new basis. And do it that way. So just want to keep it short. Thank you.
Okay, I'll bring it back.
I got a couple things here. One is, it's good to see you, Kevin.
I have a caller online.
Oh, you have a caller online? Do you want to do that now instead? I'm going to do that.
They're online. Go ahead, you're fine. Let's get the caller online off, and then.
Thank you, caller 0151 *6 to unmute. You'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, Dottie Russell here again from Southern Humboldt. When you're dealing with the contract, I'd like for you to include the Garberville Vets Hall, because that, who knows how long this contract that you're working on is going to be in effect, but clearly the Garberville Vets Hall needs to be included. So I hope that you will do that. And I just wanted to say that I think that we really need to be embracing state and federal funds to help out with possibly the new windows, whatever's happening with the building, the actual construction of the new building in Garberville. But the vets supported all of America. They didn't just support Humboldt County, which of course we know. So because of that, I think that the vets need to be supported throughout the entire United States, using the federal government and their funds as well to see that the buildings are kept up, that they're energy efficient, that their utilities are paid, and if the utilities are paid, then maybe a contract could be done with a cleaning service for each vet hall, so that the fees could be inexpensive, so people that couldn't afford it or found that they didn't have the support to pay money for it could use them. It was a wonderful experience when the Vets Hall in Garberville had a shelter there, and we were cooking food and helping people. If anybody knew a man named Hobbit that was a chaplain in the war and saw a lot of people pass away, he was there and was able to get housing because of staying at a shelter at the Vets Hall. So that's just one little but meaningful experience that that happened at the Vets Hall, along with many other things that were used as far as courts, other meetings, and the hospital used it for exercise classes as well. So I think that the use of the Vets Hall and the appreciation of the vets and the unity of people working together so that everybody is feeling a part of a community and a large family, which includes everybody. So I'd like to see you make sure that the utilities are paid, but go way further with that, and that's to see that the state and federal government is really active and involved. And maybe even a part of each Vets Hall has to do with housing and mental health services as well, because watching a lot of people die in front of you is pretty traumatic, to say the least. And I think that we need to honor and support with it.
Thank you, Dottie. All right. So I'm hearing Proposition A, Proposition B, or Option A, Option B. Supervisor Wilson?
appreciate that. Again, Kevin, thanks for coming down. As the supervisor who actually brought the last increase to this board at the request of the Arcata Veterans Hall, I appreciate, I mean, I get this. Like, this isn't like something, and I live a block away from the Vets Hall there. It's like they're a lot. It is a community center of sorts in my neighborhood, and for extended far beyond the town of Arcata. I've been extremely appreciative of all of the activities. I've gone to events there. When I was in high school, I went to events there, so it's been a long time. I mean, it's been providing a space for the diversity of community organizations and families, and in turn, you have church services there, you have Buddhist services there, you got it all. I mean, it is really going on, I have to say. And the dances that are going on, it is a very hustling and bustling part of my community, and I very much appreciate it. So from that perspective, I'm just 100% behind these facilities in what they do, and not just service to veterans, which is very, very important, but also in service to the greater community, which I think, at least what I've observed in my neighborhood, is what the veterans at the Arcata, and I assume everybody else, they enjoy that part of the community service. That in the community service didn't just end; it's in a new stage, and I really appreciate that. And there's been talks with Arcata to become an extreme weather shelter, or to work with Arcata House to do that. They have a lot of students in there working from the university, helping out on all kinds of things. But at the same time, it's an old building, and it needs help in so many ways. And the utilities has been one big part of this. We've just begun talking about these upgrades. I want to, as an example, the Grange Hall in Freshwater just upgraded with a heat pump system, also a big old building. Their energy bills have dropped dramatically. So a technological advancement in even old buildings can be very, very helpful. And it goes a long ways in terms of the resiliency of these institutions, these buildings. And that's what I kind of want to get to is what I'm finding in talking to the veterans at Arcata is that they want to participate more in being not just being an extreme weather shelter, but also just being available in times of need for the community in general. In order to do that, the facility itself has to be a resilient space. It has to be as self-reliant as possible. And that's where these systems, working on the efficiency and working on renewable energy within those systems help these facilities become more resilient and self-sustaining. And I think it's extremely important. In regard to option A and B, I still have concern a little bit about the incentive to, if that's all we're going to do, I'm not quite there yet, because I do believe we do need an increase, but I still feel like there needs to be some incentive to be efficient, energy efficient, and some incentive to move forward as not just Arcata we're talking about, but I think every building in our system here to get together and really talk about aggregated moving forward to update all of our buildings so they are more, again, resilient and self-sustaining as facilities, and for not just the veterans, which I think is obviously very most important, highest priority, but for the entire community. So I'm more leaning towards an option B, but I'm not totally clear on whether I'm there with the full amount. I would like maybe something a little less than that full amount, then we have a budget to actually have staff look at and work with our veterans to reach out to RCEF RCEA and others, it's going to take money, it's going to take resources to do this, to actually do the investment part of this. I think it's really important that we invest so that these facilities are more self-sustaining. Because my hope is that we reduce these utility bills more than what's being talked about here in terms of the increase. So that's where I'm at.
And just for my own, are you talking to Public Works, to Sean now, or are you putting that burden on the veterans, the
We're
ones that
gonna have to-
occupy or the ones that own the building?
We're gonna have to work together. I think it's gonna be a team effort. What I don't want to have us do is just rely on the veterans or just rely on, this is me anyway, and what I've seen, I think you have a good group of people on both sides of this that can work together to get there, to make those advancements. I think that's going to be more self-sustaining in the long run too. That the investment into that is going to into those systems. What I see, I'll go back to the Granges that are doing these upgrades. They're invested in that, so they're actually invested in how to operate them. They're invested in the transition to these things, and so I think just relying just on our staff to do it all is I want to acknowledge our commitment to the vets and veterans and everything. I think that's real, but at the same time, these are human systems, and we do need the investment of the people in there and to moving forward. So that's.
So I think, and I'm just going to say, just for Supervisor Rowe, that gives option A, because that drives the incentive for us to make sure these things happen. And if you look at the budget of, as Supervisor Rowe, RCEA, this is their job. I mean, before they became a CCA, this was their job. I mean, PG&E subsidized them to do energy efficiency. So, and then they become a CCA, so now they have all this other revenue. And I think working with staff, I don't think it all goes on staff. I think staff is going to step in and work with the veterans and RCEA, who does energy efficiency. And if we go with Measure A and we're paying the bills, the whole idea is lighting the fire underneath us to get it done quicker, and we pay less bills. So that's mine. Supervisor Royal.
Thank you. I'd like to make a couple comments and then move towards a motion, because I know we have a hard stop coming up pretty soon. The comments are, I will very much take it upon myself to work with our CEA and our facilities department to look at available options for funding for things like heat pumps and heating systems that are energy efficient, as well as other energy efficiency upgrades. And I think that process can happen. Some of it depends on the state's current funding, which I think is very different than the last time we applied for, funds for the fire halls. But that said, I will take it upon myself to work on that with our staff. I do want to articulate that, the idea about being able to use at each supervisor's discretion the halls a few times a year. I know currently we could be reaching out and working with the halls, and that some of that is a little bit it's less clear. And so my hope is that we can cover all utilities, however works best for each veterans hall, but that we also have the discretion to use the hall written into the contracts a few times a year for events that are not related to elections, or I should say elections is a separate matter with what Juan said, but obviously not like political fundraiser type events, things that are in the public good. And that is something that I think would be very important and valuable, and would increase the awareness and use of these facilities. So I think it could just be a win-win for all involved. But what's difficult is that we don't just have a slush fund of money for each supervisor to hold town hall convenings or events in the community. We volunteer our time to do fundraising, and we certainly have travel funds, but there's not a clear source of funding support for these types of events. And so I would really value that, and I believe my peers would value that, and fellow supervisors and would value that moving forward. So my motion is that we, I'll move that we direct staff to execute new agreements with the veterans halls that are county owned and operated, or county owned facilities, excuse me, using either option A or option B according to what each VFW or American Legion organization would like to do. And that we include in their language that allows the use for county events at the supervisor's discretion 4 times per year.
I'll second that for discussion. Can I get an example of what a county event would be? Are you talking town halls?
Yeah, like town halls, but also there are organizations that have reached out to me to ask if they can have support, understanding that these are county-owned facilities, for events for charitable organizations.
Can you give an example? Because I'm just saying those aren't county events, so I'm looking for an example.
Yeah, so for example, the Care Force event that we heard about a couple of meetings ago, that's a free clinic available to all community members over a 2-day period. They were looking for a venue, and ultimately they are going to use the Adorney Center, but I would have liked to be able to offer, the use of a county facility, obviously working with the local VFW to make sure it works for scheduling and everything. And that would, it would frankly be a nice thing to be able to offer in our positions, but since we don't have a lot of facilities that can accommodate events like that otherwise, that's the type of event I'm talking about.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Thank you. I don't know that I'm agreeable to the events. Who would be there to, would you be there 24/7 or however long that event's there? Who would clean the facility? Who would be responsible for that stuff? If you're letting some group and a nonprofit group utilize that facility, currently when you rent the facility, you have to be there the entire time to be responsible, and then also for the the minute cleanup, but then the rest of the cleanup falls to the veterans. So I'm not sure. I mean, I would like to see how they feel about that, and yeah, I'm not sure I'm okay with that.
So I mean, when people use the facilities, they already agree to certain standards for use of the facility. It would just be all of those things without the fee.
Well, the pay is what pays them to clean the facility after use. So what you're requesting that there be no pay, which is minute in amount anyways, but it does help with the cleanup and with opening the hall and closing the hall and so forth and so on. So I'm just curious.
So we currently have agreements with like Recology where we get to use a certain number of dumpsters per calendar year for community cleanups, that kind of thing. And we work with Public Works to say, hey, we'd like to use, I know it's apples and oranges, but just bear with me.
I understand
But we don't have to be there
motion.
with the dumpster the whole time.
I understand the motion, but I'm not sure I'm agreeable is what I'm saying,
Yeah.
and I,
All right.
yes.
Okay. Go ahead. What is your response to that?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to schedule anything for the county. Over the past years, anytime the county wants to do an event down there, such as hold elections or do vax clinics, they contact the rental manager. We make the building available and go from there. So I don't think it's absolutely necessary. Anytime the county needs the building, they have the facility. You own the building, and you have really control over it. The only thing we have to worry about is whether or not we have a rental schedule for that period of time.
Exactly.
And we can schedule around it.
And I think all the halls agree to that. So, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Al. Laura, you're standing there. I've closed public comment, but
Okay, that's fine.
well, real quick,
I was
because
just going to say,
you scare me a little
yeah,
less than your mother.
yeah. They call me the general for a reason. I'm the House Committee. I'm on the House Committee. I'm also the rental manager for the Fortuna Veterans Building. So far for this year alone, we have 28 rentals that are outside of our normal meetings and our schedule that we have every week. And 15 of those are nonprofits. And so the nonprofits do get a lower rate, but my main concern is it's not just utilities that we're having a problem with, it's the conditions of the building alone. We could rent the building way more if our kitchens were upgraded, because right now we have one oven that doesn't even work. And there's a lot of, it's not just the utilities that need to be seen, it's also the conditions of the building. We would be able to rent it more.
Thanks, Lynn. Understood. Okay, with that, I'm going to. So, go ahead.
Well, I just am not comfortable with the motion as it stands, and I would ask the motion maker to maybe pull back the, and I understand what Al said, but what Supervisor Arroyo is talking about is specific to a supervisor wanting a different group, not a county-run group, such as elections or vaccines, to be able to utilize the hall. I just want to make sure that it's okay with the Veterans Hall. Maybe that's for a different discussion. So I would ask that either I can amend your motion or that you consider not making it in there.
Well, I think, each group is different, and I know there's lots of events on the books, and I understand that there are sideboards around this, but I think up to a certain number of events per year that we're able to, because we don't have a lot of opportunities to provide county facilities for causes like this upcoming free medical and dental clinic that will serve veterans, but it'll serve a lot of other folks in the community too. Those are the types of events that I don't doubt after negotiation with each VFW and talking about it that there would be support for events like that. But it would be helpful for me to have clarity about use of the facilities moving forward. So I think, I can set up a conversation to clarify this with the Eureka Veterans Memorial Building, the VFW, and, I can do that legwork. I think it would be helpful to have clarity about there being waiving of fees a couple times or a few times a year for certain events, and they could be a county event like a town hall, or they could be a charitable event at our discretion. I would really appreciate that, but it sounds like that's going to be a sticking point. So I'm willing to, dial it back, but that seems to be a good, especially, to change the agreement to pay all the utilities, which I think is totally fair. It seems like a reasonable request to make. So I guess I can just pull it back and say I'll work with them and hope that everyone remembers this conversation. But the reason that things get put into agreements is that as people who are managing things change, it may be forgotten.
Supervisor Wilson, and I'm agreeable as the seconder. I really appreciate you pulling it out.
I'm just going to I'm going to go back to the incentive for efficiency in use. I hear what Supervisor Bohn says, that if we're on the hook to pay everything, then we're incentivized to work with our CEA and work to try and make these, but that can take some years and all this work and all those other things. I'm still kind of wondering what is the incentive to be, not turn the heat up all the way and open all the doors. I'm trying to get it, I'm trying to figure out a way to make sure that, and kind of why I like the stipend, where like a fixed stipend versus based on bills, is that if the users of the facility reduce their energy usage, they get the money, right? And right now, it's not necessarily, it's like they're gonna, right now, if it's based on the bills, then there's no incentive to reduce the use. And so this is the part I'm having a bit of an issue with. In the end, I'm gonna vote yes on this because I feel like we need to update this and move forward. But at the same time, I haven't really heard anything that makes me feel like there's any true efforts to get to that place where we're moving towards efficiency, resiliency, and, self-sufficiency in these facilities. So.
And I don't know if this will set you at ease and without sounding sappy. You look at the people out there, I think they're fully aware of energy efficiencies and what's going on in the world. So I don't think they have been fed, some of them longer than me, has been fed about utilities and the costs and everything else. So I don't think they're going to walk out with the lights on. I mean, and then it just puts us into a position to get off our duffs and make them more energy efficient. But I have full faith in the veterans and how they've got us here, that they know how to turn off a light. I know they know how to turn the heater down, and I know how they know how to maintain a building, because a lot of this maintenance has been upon them in all of these buildings, Arcata and all of them, and they've done it themselves. They haven't just kicked back and says that's not our job. So I think that was my biggest concern too. What's the incentive for them to hit the light switch? And then I realized that they've been hitting the light switch their whole life, so I'm not as worried as you might be.
Supervisor Bohn?
Yes.
So in the staff report, it does talk about, I did just want to clarify one point. It does talk about water, sewer, electricity, gas, garbage, and local telephone service. But then looking at one of the agreements, it looks like utilities is defined as including phone data and internet services. So I just want to clarify what we're talking about with the internet component and the data component. My motion was based on the staff report, but I'm open to hearing.
I think it varies a little bit per hall. My recommendation would be to include all the above. In some cases, the telephone service is hitched to the data or internet, and we need telephone for fire alarms. So it's kind of something you really can't pull out. So I'd recommend just including that.
I'm open to that. I just wanted to make sure that we were all talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
I was just going to say the same thing. Comes as a package. We had initially phone service with Suddenlink, and then we went to the cable, and then internet to provide more services for the renters. So
that makes sense.
Okay.
Thank you, Al. Appreciate
And
it.
Ferndale's going to be a tough one to comply with this, but we just put in for a grant last week, and I think it's been approved. I'm not sure. On the last mile options are going out, a 6-mile broadband interconnect out Highway 211, and I think there's one other place in Humboldt County that's on that list. So it is coming.
I was just gonna say, the internet is because we're moving into the 21st century here, and we're doing everything for our breakfasts online, so we need that, and that's part of the bundle of the phone.
Yeah, we got it. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. And we're going to clarification, Supervisor.
Supervisor Hayes?
Yeah, so much for my heart at 11:32.
Might be a demotion, I'm not sure. Just 2 points of clarification. One on the discussion regarding the charges for events. Just for what the county standards are in terms of like using our own facilities like the library, or the substation in Garberville, we do charge for the use of those facilities, but we do offer a discount for nonprofits.
Yeah.
However, we have taken a fairly firm stance of not waiving those charges for that exact reason, that there is a cost incurred for doing that. Furthermore, in the motion, I would suggest that you provide direction to staff on an immediate supplemental budget to address the stipend in the current year. As Supervisor Arroyo's motion was to pursue contract negotiations to establish what this would look like going forward, but I think we would also like direction on what the immediate financial impact would look like.
Consider that in there.
The motion maker would also like to consider that in there, and to be clear, I'll drop the 4 times a year, but I, with great reluctance, let it be noted.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded.
Thank you. Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yep.
Chair Bohn?
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
We are going to be back here at 12:15. Thank you guys for your service. and girls. Good seeing you, Cliff. CAO Hayes.
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Next up is your review and approval of the 2024 to 28 Humboldt County Strategic Plan. This work began with your board in March of last year through a number of strategic planning sessions that involved the full board and also all of your department heads and members of the public. Following a third session of that whole group's work, your board appointed a strategic plan working group, which comprised of Supervisor Arroyo and Supervisor Wilson and a number of department heads and staff who have spent many, many hours working to pull together from the 3-day working sessions, the information that you have before you today in the strategic plan. I'd like to give a big thank you to Kati Giardo and Vanessa Erickson, who did all of the graphic design and edit in this document. I think they did a wonderful job. It's a very attractive and readable document, so I greatly appreciate their work, as well as the work of all of the department heads and the working group who put in a lot of effort with the board to pull this document together. I do have one small edit to propose on page 8 under the safe and healthy communities. The first bullet point and the first section is support and sustain partnerships between public safety and partner agencies to enhance public safety in our communities. Just like to rework that a little. It's a little repetitive, so to have that say something more to the effect of support and sustain partnerships between law enforcement and other agencies to improve public safety, just so it reads a little bit better. Probably not a big deal for your review of this document, but just to make that clear that I would propose that edit in there. Otherwise, I will toss it over to your board for your feedback on this document and any potential modifications if you so choose.
Yeah. Any hands up, Nikki?
No, Chair Bohn.
Anybody in the public? Aye. Bring it back to the board. Please.
I just want to thank everybody involved in this process. I want to say that I've been through a couple of these now, and this one is better than the last, and the last one was better than the one before that. And it's not just because of just sort of the advancement of the ideas and concepts, but even just the participation from the departments was robust, and these are very. I mean, these are somewhat. Sometimes we think of them as being put on the shelf. But I have to tell you, these are really our checklists and sort of moving forward. They're a way for us to reevaluate in a few years where we were. And the last one was very useful for that. And I have to encourage everybody to pull these things out every 6 months or so, because that's where they become most useful. And I just really appreciate everyone's hard work. That's it. And I move to approve the plan.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any other comment? Yep. Supervisor Arroyo?
Thank you. I'll just echo the appreciation to the staff who worked closely with Supervisor Wilson and myself on this to really, and our consultant who helped with our strategic planning effort to really pull together a beautiful document that also really captures a lot of what we communicated about at our strategic planning retreats, and I think it was worth the effort to pull everyone together in person to really conduct those retreats and dig into this so that we could have something good to work with. So thank you to everyone, including all of this board, for their engagement.
Supervisor Madrone?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I too want to just thank everybody, including CIO Hayes and all the department heads and the board for, as was stated, robust engagement. I think we really have a good document. Of course, the proof is in the pudding and the actions down the road, but thank everybody, especially the department heads, for serious engagement at both days of the event.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Okay, I'll echo all that.
Just
I
never
do
want
want
to
to
take a
thank
chance.
Robert Bettendorf, who led us in this, the two-day event down at Bimbo, and really kept us on track down there, and really appreciate the work through the CAO's office that he brought to us. Oh, and the one, there was more than that. It was one up in our Trinidad, yeah.
Been moved and seconded. Nikki?
Thank you, Chair Bohn. Chair Bohn?
Sure.
Supervisor Bushnell?
Yes.
Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
And Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you. And now, the last item, I believe. The retired annuitant.
I can take this item. This is procedural by and large as a requirement of CalPERS. This is to allow Brooke Epperly in Public Works to come back as a retired annuitant. You may recall that this was before your board in January. However, it becomes before your board again because the roles and responsibilities that Brooke will be performing have changed a little bit, and thus additional approval from your board is required to meet CalPERS requirements. And with that, we would seek your board's approval.
Is there any hands up? Any public
Chair
comment? Go.
I'll make a motion to approve staff recommendation.
I'll second and apologize for all the emails that I mistakenly send that are supposed to go to the other brother.
Been moved and seconded. Nikki?
Excuse me, sorry about that. Supervisor Wilson?
Yes.
Supervisor Arroyo?
Yes.
Supervisor Madrone?
Yes.
Supervisor Bushnell? Yes. Chair Bohn? Thank you. Motion carries 5-0.
Seeing, looks like we have a consensus for adjournment. We are adjourned.
A 5-0 day. Across the board, I believe.